Here's a story that Élie did the other day, and it caught my eye. The headline is Campus Watch. Son of refugees forced out of Queen's student election for being conservative. I'll read the first sentence and then I'll bring in Élie right away. A Queen's University student is speaking out after he and his peers were forced out of an election by activists who claimed he posed a threat to, quote, equity-deserving groups for being affiliated with the Conservative Party. Noah Mawji is the son of refugees from Uganda. His two running mates, Jason Kim and Nicholas David Brasset-Duke, are also visible minorities. Joining us now is Élie Cantin-Nantel. Élie, great to see you again.
Yes, likewise, Ezra. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, I believe that anyone and everyone can be conservative. And in fact, these days, I put it to you that the entrepreneurial spirit, protecting families from radical transgenderism, tax relief. I think all of those traditional conservative values are naturally appealing to new Canadians. And of course, then there's cultural values like freedom. And when I read that a guy from Uganda, I thought, I bet he's an Ismaili Muslim. If he's from Uganda, if his name is Noah Mawji, those people know what tyranny is like. So I'm glad they're conservatives. And yet they were blocked. Tell me the facts. And by the way, is Noah Mawji an Ismaili Muslim?
No, his story is actually even more fascinating than this. So his parents are part of there were South Asian people living in Uganda that were exiled in the 70s. And his parents
from Idi Amin, right? He kicked out anyone who wasn't black.
Yeah, so they were kicked out of Uganda and they came to Canada. That's what he told me in the 70s. He was born in Canada, so that's why he's the son of refugees, not a refugee himself. But his family was Muslim and he's a convert. He converted to Christianity.
So interesting.
It's a very, very interesting story. I spoke to him for, I would say, a good 40 minutes. His life story is so interesting. Someone that has a lot of a very valuable life experience. He's not Jewish, but he is involved with the Jewish community. He's a great ally of the Jewish community. All of these things sound great, except when you are a woke white activist who despises anyone, especially anyone that they view as oppressed, and they would view someone like him as oppressed, and yet he is a successful guy and he's a conservative, so they didn't like that at all, especially that he was involved with the Jewish community, and it has unfortunately become, Ezra, and I see this on my university campus, being a Zionist in 2024 on university campuses is unfortunately become socially unacceptable because of all the radical pro-Palestine propaganda. So unfortunately, even though this student, I think Noah had was such a qualified person, his two teammates were also classified, very diverse. The three of them were incredibly diverse. You had woke activists that actually said, no, we deem that they are not fit to represent equity-deserving groups. And therefore, rather than run against them to try to, let's argue that our position is better, we're going to smear you and we're going to try to get you canceled. And at the rules, all it takes is one person to quit and the whole thing falls. One of the guys, unfortunately, fell through that. So the whole bid fell through, unfortunately.
I'm very sorry to hear that. And again, I don't want to read too much into a name, but Jason Kim, I'm guessing that's a Korean name?
An Asian, yes, he's Asian.
And I'm only mentioning this because these are people who, minorities, these are not traditional old stock Canadians. They're either first generation or second generation newcomers. If someone was kicked out of Uganda by Idi Amin, they're for sure descendants of refugees. You would think that these people would check all the boxes, but I guess the one box that they really care about is, are you a leftist? And these three guys sounds like weren't. And I think the left pretends to be intolerant, but they hate nothing more than a minority who doesn't follow the script. I mean, look at the hatred for Clarence Thomas on the U.S. Supreme Court. He's a black judge, but he's the most conservative judge. And the left has so much racism towards him because they consider him a race traitor. Was that the kind of, what did they say about these three guys? How did they attack them? Because if they're a rainbow of racial diversity, they must have said something.
Yeah, so I will just clarify. Their issue was specifically with Noah. It wasn't necessarily with the others, because the others, are free thinkers and they have their own views. And these
Right.
three were not like, we're three conservatives, let's take over
Got
the
it.
joint.
Got it.
They were like, here, I'll read you a quote from when they were running that they put out. They said, students at Queens have lost their student identity, their student pride, and quite frankly, what it means to be at a prestigious institution to strive for academic excellence. So they actually wanted to generally improve everything for everybody. But according to the activists, they went on Instagram and they said that him being conservative was a concern to the student body. And they also cited he had unclear stances on pressing issues. You know what's the pressing issue, Ezra?
What?
It's the so-called decolonization of campus. And if you read Frantz Fanon, one of the most famous decolonization author, he says decolonization is always violent. And they're saying that decolonization is a pressing issue. And lastly, as they said, they were very mad that he was aligned with this club, the conservative club, because they supported John A. Macdonald, who they view as the notorious colonist whose legacy represents a violent genocide and the erasure of indigenous peoples. And also they took a big issue with the fact that he was associated with Zionists. So because of that, the whole team was basically attacked with the no vote campaign, abstain, because they were going to be acclaimed. But if there's more people that vote non-confidence, then they can't win. So they were like, we're going to, instead of running against them, as I said earlier, we're going to just attack them. And in the end, one of the people dropped out. So the student union just eliminated everybody.